Hi, I'm Pastor Kurt, and this is your 5-minute Bible study. Today, we're going to look at Luke chapter 20, verses 9 through 19. This is sometimes called the parable of the wicked tenants. Okay, so what's this parable about? Jesus tells this story about this landowner who had this land, had this vineyard, and he leased it to tenants. Basically said, take care of it while I'm away. Tenant said, okay. And the guy leaves. Well, he's gone for so long that the tenants kind of start to think that it's theirs now. Well, later, the landowner sends a slave to collect the produce of the land because the tenants have been taking care of it, right? The land has been producing. Well, once the slave shows up, the tenants say, no, this is our land, and they kill the slave. This happens 2 more times. The master sends 3 slaves, all of whom get beaten and killed by these tenants. Then the landowner says, well, they didn't listen to my slaves. How about I send my son? Surely they'll listen to him. Well, he sends the son. The tenants think, oh, it's the heir. Let's kill him, and then we'll get the inheritance. Then they massacre and kill the son, too. Pause. Why in the world would this landowner send his son? He knows what the tenants did to the slaves, right? They beat them and they killed them. Why would he think they would treat his son any differently? He says, they'll respect my son. No, they won't. The landowner here seems kind of stupid. Unless you realize that the landowner is doing something different here. Yes, the landowner sends the son, but it's not because he's stupid and doesn't know any better. It's because he's even willing to give his son for them. Now, of course, we can't help but hear the prophets and Jesus in this, right? When Jesus tells this parable, he's talking to the scribes and the Pharisees. He's telling them this story about these tenants who didn't take care of what was entrusted to them. And at the end of the story, after he describes how they killed the slaves and killed the son, he says, okay, what should the landowner do to these tenants? Well, he should kill them and then entrust the land to others who will give him the produce. To which the scribes and the Pharisees say, heaven forbid. They realize that he's telling this parable against them. Sometimes when you want someone to change their behavior, you can't just come out and say, hey, change your behavior, because they're not going to listen to you. Instead, you kind of need to tell them a story and help them see themselves in the story, help them come to their own conclusions about their behavior. This is very similar to what the prophet Nathan did for King David. Nathan found out what David did with Bathsheba. God told him. And then he told Nathan to approach David with this story. And Nathan's story went something like this. He's talking to King David. He said, King David, once upon a time, there was this rich guy who welcomed a guest to stay with him. But he didn't want to kill one of his own animals to have a feast for his guest. So he took the only animal of his poor neighbor and offered that for his guest to eat. King David got so upset and says something like, how in the world should this guy do this? He should be killed, right? The king knows that the rich man had plenty of his own things. He shouldn't have taken what the poor man had. Well, then Nathan says, you are the man. Same thing going on here. The scribes and the Pharisees realize that Jesus is telling this parable against them. Now, for us, it's really easy for us to point and say, oh, look at how they messed up. The scribes and the Pharisees or King David or whoever. We're much less willing to see how we mess up. This story is directed to us too. Think about times when you want to be in charge, when you want things to go your way. when you don't want to listen to what God says for you to do. This kind of mentality goes all the way back to Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden, right? God told them to take care of the garden, and what did they do? They thought they could do whatever they wanted with it, eat whatever fruit they wanted, and then that got them in all kinds of trouble too. We can't just go around doing whatever we want. God has entrusted you with riches. God has entrusted you with resources. God has entrusted you with all kinds of treasures in your life, not just monetarily, but all sorts of things. And God calls you to take care of them. And when God wants the fruit of it, right, that's God's fruit. That's not your fruit. You're just the one who takes care of these things. It doesn't belong to you. So often in our society, we're very possessive of things, right? This is my thing. I earned it. I deserve it. No, we don't. We are simply caretakers of what has been entrusted to us because it's really all God's. Yes, we have an important role to play, but what we do with it is meant for God's glory, just like in this parable. There's your 5-minute Bible study. Please remember to like, comment, share, and subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Thanks.